All right. So Jenny, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm okay, not too bad. So I'm struggling a little bit with the shorter days, how dark it is now, and being stuck at
Yeah,
home. But other than that, I'm fine.
yeah, it's tough.
Because well, there's some things I want to talk about that has to do with that. But let's first talk about the single "Coming Back for Me." When was that single conceived?
Yeah, yes. So I wrote it actually. I was going through a really intense writing rut back in the spring when all of COVID started happening.
Right.
And then I kind of just opened up a little bit and just started exploring the feelings of what was going on with everything with COVID and quarantine. And it was written in July.
Okay.
Yeah. So had a little spurt in July and wrote some songs.
What was it like in that period to be creative and to write? Was it difficult to write positively? Was it difficult to think that way?
Yeah. So it was super difficult to write positively in the sense that I think it was just easier to engage with the emotions of being isolated. And I guess the positive aspect is how can I write about it in a way that will relate to people in a positive way? You know what I mean? So,
And then, well, I've written down a couple of lyrics, but it starts off with kind of saying, "Well, I have these bad habits that I can't get rid of. I go back to these same patterns of behavior." Um, was that something you struggle with in your life, in your personal life?
yeah. So the song, for sure, it's definitely influenced by what was going on this past year.
Hmm.
But a lot of it was kind of about experiencing solitude and trying to be on my own for the first time after whether it was like ending a relationship or just living on my own for the first time. And so a lot of it was just going back to the same thinking patterns and negative ways of thinking and certain habits and just realizing that that was starting to happen and trying to figure out how to work my way through it.
And I saw on a Facebook post that you mentioned that kind of this creativity and writing these songs helped kind of saved me in many ways. You say so. Can you explain that a little bit? How did the creative aspect with what you now just mentioned, kind of that loneliness or those concepts, how did that help getting
Yeah,
that creative side out of you?
for sure. So I think like many creative people, um, and maybe many writers, I don't know who would agree, but I find the writing process of writing through an experience or a feeling or something really helps me just work through it. So kind of this perspective of like, even if this song doesn't go anywhere, or if I write something and it doesn't, transform to anything, at least I've just kind of written something where I've been able to dissect what's in my brain.
Mhm.
um,
Right.
and so this song in particular was one that really helped me kind of understand that whole process of learning to be by myself and be okay with that.
And now that we're a couple of months further than when it was written, do you feel have you learned something about yourself in the kind of the last 6 months or kind of this whole period?
Oh my God, I've grown so much. Because I just moved on my own for the first time last January. So I moved solo right before quarantine happened.
Okay.
So basically it was like a test on how to be alone, how to be in your own thoughts and just how to like work through things and build good habits and how to stay connected with people. So all of that was happening this year while I was trying to be creative and then trying to do things in music. And but the biggest thing was just like trying to be by myself and growing with that. So
And in that period, and kind of referring to what I mentioned in the beginning about struggling with the darker days, how important did you find that mental health was particularly last year? Because it's been a time of uncertainty for everybody, I think.
For sure. It's, talking about mental health is something that I'm super comfortable with. And I try to be as open and vulnerable as possible with people, because I think it's just super important to address it and be aware of it. Because so many people are struggling with it. And especially this year, more than anything, I think people have just maybe even become aware of it because they've been by themselves more or in isolation, or you're just in your own thoughts. And I think you just have to face it. And
Right.
so this past year for me in particular, like I've experienced mental health things for a long time, but I think it was a year where I just gained a lot of clarity in becoming even more comfortable with the process of, going through it and all that. So yeah.
Is that to some degree where that title comes from, coming back for me, that you have to kind of figure it out on your own a little bit, that you have to get a little bit stronger in this time to get through it?
For sure. The title, I think it's funny. A lot of people think that this is a song about someone else and wanting someone else to come back for me or whatever. And it's really a lot of, about just me focusing on me and coming back and paying attention to the things that I need to pay attention to and work through. So,
Right.
yeah.
And there's a sense I got about just halfway past the midway point of the song, where the lines come in. I gotta get away from you. I gotta get out. Where the kind of I'm not musically technical enough to explain this, but where kind of the mood shifted, or it just felt the tone shifted around that. Can you explain that, or was that intentional?
Totally. So I was writing very minor in the first part of the song, and there was, as I was writing, there was this kind of like shift in my mind where I start talking about this of I gotta get out, and which has many meanings, but I think the biggest thing was I wanted to create like a musical shift there. So I started, messing around with some more major chords to give the mood a change. And because people think I write a lot of sad music. I think we've talked about this, which is true. It's definitely not like the happiest songs in the world. But I think when I write, I always try to create a positive spin on something maybe negative or sad or melancholy or something like that. So I was actually really excited about this musical kind of change in the song.
Well, yeah, because I really noticed it, and then the tone shifted, and then the words kind of got a different meaning, and that's where I got that idea from, where it's more about yourself rather than somebody else.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you did make this song with Andy Selzer, who you've been working with a little bit over the past couple of months, or I don't know exactly how long. But what is this kind of the precursor to? Well, what is this leading up to? This single?
Yeah, we're in the process right now of finishing up an EP, which I'm really excited about. Andy's been involved with a couple of songs on that, and I'm really excited about it. It's definitely different from what I've put out before in some ways, and sonically we're engaging with different elements and tones, and trying to write something a little more up tempo to get in there, and creating a little bit of diversity and stuff. So I'm really excited about putting out this EP for sure.
Do you have a title for the EP yet that you can reveal?
I don't. I'm weighing a few options, because it's like one of those things where this time I'm actually gonna name it something other than my name, because my debut EP was just Jenny Kern. But there's so much going on thematically in this EP that I want to hit that right, for sure.
And Final question then, because you mentioned kind of this musical exploration that you've done, and we talked about this a little bit the last time that we spoke. But do you have a sense now of where you're going? You mentioned previously that Phoebe Bridgers was a big influence, but do you have a sense now where your musical kind of identity lies?
Definitely. I think there's this dreamy indie pop sound that we're trying to swerve into, which I've definitely hit a little bit before, but I think I started out much more folk oriented, and I think I do tend to write in many ways. I definitely have folk songs that I write a lot, but I think we're weaving more into a pop direction that kind of taps into indie, alternative, and different tones there. So yeah, Bon Iver, big influence. Definitely some Japanese house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, last thought then, because I kind of hesitate to ask this question because nobody can tell for sure. But what is the goal for this year then? What is you have this EP? Do you have any sense of when you will be able to release it and play a couple of shows here or there or something like that, or is it just simply too early to say?
Yeah, no, we for sure. I'm actually planning to. I can definitely say it. I'm planning to release another single, hopefully next month in February. And then the EP ideally in March. And so all of that will kind of happen early on in the year. And then, the goal is to keep writing and working on material for what I hope to be a full-length LP at some point. Probably, I don't think that'll happen this year, but that's just, that would be a lot of music in one year, which would be amazing. But and then in terms of shows, it's totally a matter of just going with what feels safe and right.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that towards the end of the year, maybe in the fall, things will open up and we'll start to be able to play some shows locally or around the country or whatnot. So,
well, let's hope so.
I hope so. I hope I miss live music myself. I just want to go see shows.
Who would be the first show you would really want to see?
Oh man, I definitely want to see Phoebe's show, tour for Punisher. It was such a great record. I just I want to see it live so badly.
Fair enough. All right, Jenny, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Hope you have a great day.
You too. Talk to you soon.